Readers Entertainment Radio presents Booklights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Booklights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to Booklights today. Can you believe we are almost halfway through 2026? And we've had so many great books on this year. It's been a really great year. And today you are in for a treat because we have on author Robert Bailey. He's a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, and he has a brand new book that comes out this week called The Mediator. And I love talking thrillers, so this is going to be really fun. If you have not read Robert yet, you are in for a treat because he does have a really great backlist for you to read your way through. And if you haven't read him before, I'll read his bio here so you can get to know him. Robert Bailey is the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of The Boomerang, as well as the Jason Rich series, the Bocephus Haynes series, and the award-winning McMurtrie, there we go, and Drake Leaguer thriller series. I can read. It's Monday. He also wrote the inspirational novel, The Golfer's Carol. The Mediator is his 12th novel. And Robert is a retired attorney and registered mediator. And he lives in Huntsville, Alabama, with his wife, Dixie, and they're proud parents of 3 children, 2 dogs, and 2 cats. So if you would like more information, I did put a link to Robert's website right there in the show notes, so you can click it anytime and go buy that book. It's really important. This is a brand new series for him. And you guys know, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's really important that you support the series as it comes out, so that the publisher will finish the series. So definitely check out his website, go grab the book, and without any further delay, you there, Robert?
Yes, Lisa. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, I'm so glad you could be here today. So your book comes out this week. You want to tell everybody why they should go grab The Mediator?
So The Mediator is it's a legal thriller, my 12th book, and I'm super excited about it. It features an attorney named Max Ringo, who's kind of making a comeback of sorts. She's had a rough go of things where she's lost her law license due to basically becoming a victim of the opioid crisis after an awful car accident. And she's just really had trouble both professionally and personally, and is trying to reconnect with her son and trying to get a career going as a mediator. She gets appointed to mediate this high-stakes divorce case, and at the very beginning of the story, her son is kidnapped by one of the parties, and she basically is forced to settle the case on his terms, or her son is going to be killed. And so the story plays out over 3 days. It puts a mediator in kind of an impossible situation where they have a stake in the outcome, and it's very much a redemption story for Max as she kind of finds herself throughout the tale.
And so, of course, I have to ask, you are a mediator, right? Have you ever found yourself caught in a situation where suddenly race?
No, I haven't. A mediator, the very definition is that you're neutral. And so, what you try to do is help people resolve their case so that they don't have to go forward with trial. And that's become more and more popular as my career developed. At the beginning of my career, most cases settled either out of court or they went to trial. Now, almost every case that's in a civil arena, whether it's divorce or whether it's car wreck or contract, they almost always get mediated at some point. They don't always end in mediation, but more cases end in mediation now than trial. And so thought it would be a neat vehicle to center a story around. But as I like to tell people at book events, the best part of being a writer is making stuff up. And so,
right.
I take a position that's supposed to be neutral and turn it on its head because, she is basically doing something she shouldn't do, but she has no choice because if she doesn't, her son's going to be killed. So it's very much a human kind of story, mom doing whatever she can do to save her son.
Yeah. Well, what was your inspiration? I know it's a new series. Did the character come to you, the story idea? What inspired all this?
So what happens for me with stories, and it's happened ever since my first book, is while I'm working on the current project, I'll come up with another idea. I think it's a procrastination technique, really. I start thinking about
Those plot
something
bunnies.
else that sounds cooler than the current story, and I'll jot a few notes down. Sometimes that becomes nothing, but this time I just kind of become, a registered mediator, and the story idea of a mom having to settle a case to save her sons. That was the situation that popped into my head, and it just kind of took off from there. I jotted some notes down, and I thought it was good enough to send to my agent to see what she thought. And the next thing you know, we're talking to the publisher about new ideas, possibly for a series, and this was what we came up with.
Oh, that's great. When you were writing this, do you have, when you go through the many rounds of edits that we all do, did you end up with a favorite scene that won't be a huge spoiler, but a favorite scene in the book where you went, hey, this is why I wrote this one?
I think sometimes for me when I'm writing books, I have kind of I would say sort of very broad, vast, cheesy interest in music, and so sometimes I'll associate a character with a song. And for example, in the Jason Ridge series, his sort of theme is the song "Highway to Hell." He plays it to get pumped up by AC/DC, and in this story, for whatever reason, when Max is kind of in the middle of the story and she's just recruited some help and she's starting to kind of feel a little bit better about herself, starting to get some of her strength back, she listens to a song she used to listen to when she was in law school and before trials to get pumped up, and it's called "Lunatic Fringe." It was made famous in the movie Vision Quest. I'm a kid from the '80s, so uh,
Right.
it's a one-hit wonder by a band called Red Rider, and I listened to the song while I was writing the segment where she's listening to the song and she's getting fired up about kind of doing what she has to do to win, and so for me, that's anytime I can get my adrenaline going. When I'm writing it, I figure the reader probably will have a better chance of feeling that way when they read it. So.
Yeah, I like to build playlists for books as well, just because not only does it help you stay in the zone when you're writing, but I found that when you go back to edit, it can have Love's Dog put you right back,
Oh
because
yeah.
you've already started writing another book. And now, so do you find it helpful that each of your main characters has a theme song? Does it help you get back in their headspace?
It does. Yeah, it really does. A lot of times when I'm, like you said, kind of refocusing on the next round of edits, I will listen to songs, not maybe just their theme song, but just songs that other characters may listen to, or maybe background music in in a scene, and it does kind of take me back to that place that I need to go to be able to write the scene or to edit the scene.
Yeah. Um, so this is book one of a series, right? Do you have ideas for a whole bunch of books for Max, or what are you thinking?
I know, I'm kind of in the developmental editing stage of the sequel right now, which will kind of pick up on the tail end of the way the Mediator ends, which there is kind of a twist ending, a big twist at the end of the story that's kind of sets up the second book in a way. And then I have an idea for the third story, but I'm kind of right now sort of. I'm not quite sure I'm going to go in the direction I thought I was. Sometimes what happens when you write the book is that the characters start doing things that are surprised by, or maybe that I don't know, you feel a little differently about it. And that's happening to me a little bit right now, where I may want to take the third book in a different direction. So but I do envision certainly two, and I think a trilogy would be about right. Max
Mhm.
has a lot of conflict in her life, though, so I think that we could probably take it out for many books. It's just I guess from a business standpoint now, with my career, it seems like most of the series are a little shorter. You see more
Mhm.
2 and 3 book series. I think even for your established writers, who have these series that have gone on forever, there does seem to be a bit of a lag, I think, once you get however many books. And so, and when I do something new, like I'm hoping with the Mediator, hopefully that'll attract new readers to the backlist. And so,
Right.
so that's kind of been the progression so far.
Right. When you, since you have been a lawyer and now you are a mediator, is it difficult for you to shift from actual law to fictional? Because my brother-in-law owns a criminal defense firm, and I love legal thrillers on TV and all this stuff, but I was so disillusioned when when I found out that most of the time is scheduling
Yeah.
and being sure everyone can meet. And so obviously we leave all of that out, and that most things get settled right before the trial starts.
Right.
So what do you find that you go, no, this is too much detail, or what's not in the book?
Yeah, I think that certainly I take creative license with my stories, and to try to make it about the story I'm telling, and not so much about being perfectly technically, legally correct. I do on courtroom scenes in terms of evidentiary stuff. I try to be as authentic as I can, because I know lawyers like to read legal thrillers, and I watch and read legal thrillers too. And when it's something outlandish, if it's entertaining, I can still go with it,
Uh,
but if it's so outlandish that I can't quite, believe it, then that makes it harder. And so I do try to the extent that I can. This book, it is centers around a mediation, which typically happens at a law office, which typically involves a mediator going back and forth between conference rooms. So all of the things you would expect in a mediation happen here. Her opening spiel to the parties is very similar to what I say, and so I think that if a if there's a lawyer or mediator who reads the story, they'll recognize some of the things you would expect. And same with the divorce angle. I'm not a divorce lawyer, but I did talk to a divorce lawyer that I have a lot of respect for, just to get some lingo, some chips that would be on the table that maybe I didn't think about. And also there's a government contracting angle here, where the villain is, the CEO of this huge government contractor. So I did talk to a lawyer who does some of that work, just so I could just have a little bit of dialogue where I use some of the acronyms and language that they use. Even if the
right.
reader doesn't quite understand it, it's okay as long as it get to the story part fast enough. And that, I think, is the trick when you're writing these stories, is to not just wear people out with legal stuff. You've got to be able to
Detail.
weave the story in there so that they can, so that it's still fun and an escape for them.
Was that hard for you on your first book to kind of sort through what did you have too much detail in
It
there?
was very hard. It was one of the hardest things for me. My first book, my wife read it, and she read all of my early books. Now I kind of ruined the story for her before she gets to them. But she's been a great bouncing board, and she was hung up on the trial part. I was like, "What are you talking about? It's just the trial. I mean, why are you having trouble?" And finally, she's like, "Does there need to be like 7 pages of jury selection? And for a trial lawyer, picking the jury is a big deal. And but for a reader, it's really boring, unless it's really central to the story, like the runaway jury, or
Right.
I can't remember. There was a recent show about a jury fixer, but if it's not central, you just need a jury in the box. It's kind of boring. And so I took the 7 pages out and turned it into, like, 2 short paragraphs. And that was a learning experience for me. Also, in the first book, there was a lot about, it was the trucking business was the bad guy in the story. And, I had a little too much overkill on trucking regulations that they were violating. And so, because, that's what I did. I represented trucking companies back then. And so, I wanted it to be real and authentic, but I had too much, and so I
Right.
think you have to take. I mean, a famous writer, I think, said this. I can't remember the name of it. It's pretty patronizing, but it's true. Like editing, you take out the boring parts, and I
Right.
think when you're writing legal thrillers, a lot of times the boring parts are some of the more important parts
Right.
in actually practicing law, like picking the jury, like pre-trial preparation with witnesses and stuff, which I still throw in there, but I really try to move it along, so that I don't lose what the story's really about.
Right, right. Well, what was your writing journey like? I mean, you were a full-time lawyer doing your thing. What made you suddenly go, I think I want to write a book? How did that all unfold?
I think I probably knew I wanted to try writing a novel as early as my senior year of college. I took a creative writing class at Davidson College where a real author taught us, and we wrote several short stories. And I got some good feedback then. Of course, I've read those stories recently, and they're terrible. It's
You know
very
what?
unsophisticated
Teachers, though.
person was writing them, but I did learn a lot, and the main thing I learned is how much I enjoyed it. And I when I got to law school, the idea for my first book, the professor kind of came to me about a law professor returning to the courtroom after a long hiatus, and I jotted some notes down, and I read the book that I think all aspiring writers should read, which is On Writing by Stephen King,
Right.
and that was really just practically motivating. Like, he kind of strips away all of the uh, the mystical qualities about being a writer and just gives some great practical advice. And so I sat down and decided to do it, and I wrote the professor, and it was way too long. The first draft was, but I didn't know any better, and so I tried to get published with the way too long version, and got immediate rejections from literary agents, and I looked it up and I figured out that I was way too long. And then I went ahead. Probably one of the most important things I did is I had the idea for book two, and I wasn't sure how to fix book one. So I went ahead and wrote book two, and it was too long too, but it was not quite as long, and felt like I was getting better. And as I was writing book two, the way to fix book one came to me. And I went back to the professor. I was able to trim it down and really make it the story that it was supposed to be. And we kind of took off from there.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you end up getting an agent and then a publisher, or how'd that go?
Yeah, so I got an agent. Her name's Liza Fleisig, and the main benefit to having an agent is they have the contacts with the editors, with the
Right.
publishing companies. And it was about a 10-month process before we got a publishing contract that came with a lot of ups and downs where we were very close. And then when we finally did get a contract, it was with a UK imprint, which I didn't care. I was so
Right. You just
happy
got a book
getting
out.
getting a book published, and it was a two-book deal. They published the first book, and we were getting great reviews. And then the publishing house, like the imprint of the publishing house, closed, and so they did not publish book two, but they put book one. They kept publishing the digital version of book one on Amazon for like 99 cents. And it's amazing what people will buy for 99 cents, because all of a
Right.
sudden, this was when Gone Girl was the it book, and the professor and Gone Girl are like battling it out for number one on Kindle. Hers
Wow.
at a regular price, and mine's down to 99 cents. But I got noticed then by Thomas and Mercer, which is my current publisher, has published all of my books but The Golfer's Carol. And they republished The Professor, put a new cover on it, published the second book, and I've kind of had a continuing, arrange with them ever since.
No, I love it. I love it. Well, who inspires you? Who do you like to read? That, makes you read it and then you're like, shoot, I got to get back to the keyboard.
Yeah, so I'm actually listening to The Night Fire by Michael Connolly right now. I think there's probably no more consistent, like, writer of commercial fiction than him. He just never writes a stinker. His characters are so good. Los Angeles just comes alive in all the Bosch, Haller and Ballard books. And I read for enjoyment, and
Right.
he just is really great. I'm a huge Sandra Brown fan.
Mhm. She's
I love her books, Envy and Chill Factors. I was reading when I was writing my first book, and great first chapters in both of them, especially Envy. And I just think she's an amazing author. And then I love current writers. S.A. Cosby, wrote a book called Razor Blade Tears. Probably one of the first times I've had like just genuine professional jealousy, like just read the first three chapters, the setup of that story, and I was like, wow, gosh, I wish that I had come up with that idea, but only Sean could write that story, and he wrote it so well, and he deserves all the accolades that he has gotten. And so that was a big, not only like did it motivate me to get back to the keyboard, but it's just such a great story how he's become, a New York Times bestselling author, and just a good dude too. And so that I've gotten to meet. So, and then there's so many, I'm writing a inspirational novel that's going to come out not next year, but the year afterwards. And I recently discovered Frederick Bachman for the first time and read, I guess it's A Man Called Ove. Incredible, such a great story. And then the hit book this year is Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. And that book was phenomenal. Like my life was better while I was reading it. It was so like touching. And so I do love to read, and when it's really good, not only is it motivating, it's just so comforting.
Right. It is a nice break from the world being on fire to be able to get into a book.
Right.
So what is next for you? Are you, it sounds like you're working on an inspirational novel, but you also said you're editing book 2. What comes out next?
Yeah. So I'm right in the throes of book 2 for the of the Max Ringo series. And the tentative title is called The Judge. And it's going to mark a return to the courtroom for Max. The first book is about her as a mediator.
She
But
gets
by
her
this
license back?
She'll get her license back, and I've only had it back a little bit, but you can't write a legal thriller series without eventually, getting back to the courtroom. And I thought for her particularly, it would be a moment that really pops because she was so good at one time, and now she gets to go back. Of course, it's going to be another high conflict of interest, impossible situation for her, where, she has another personal stake in it. So, I think that's going to be a running theme in this series, is that she's trying to outrun the situation she's in and is always kind of having obstacles come up that involve it. But so I'm excited about that. Developmental editing is one of the most challenging, rewarding, and frustrating parts of the process, because it's very difficult when you're cutting and putting back in. It's probably the way a chef feels when they're making a dish. And I'm in the middle of it now. And so I'm like, pulling my hair out, which I don't have a lot of hair. And so but I feel great about it. I think we're going to land the plane, but we're still circling the runway right now.
Yeah.
And then the book that comes after The Judge its tentative title is called Old Aaron, and it's a completely different thing for me. It's similar in some respects to The Golfer's Carol. It's an inspirational novel which will feature a young teenage woman from the Appalachians mountains, and she's got a really tough family situation. Her mom's an alcoholic and her dad's in prison. She has 3 younger brothers that she's basically taken care of. And she's a very talented songwriter, and she likes to sing too. And she has some local gigs and has some tragedy, awful, happen at the very beginning of the story, which puts her family like in dire need of money, and DHR is knocking at the door because she's having to take care of these kids by herself. And this drifter named Aaron Love comes to town. He's the custodian for the high school, and he's taken an interest in her songwriting, and they write a song together that they record together. And when they record it together, he sounds a whole lot like Elvis. Like his voice is very, and his look, and the book's set in 1992, 15 years after Elvis's death. And so when it comes out, there are rumblings that, is he or isn't he? And I think that the story's kind of a combination of a Star is Born with a little bit of True Grit and a low budget Western called Old Henry thrown in. And it's really more about the magic of Elvis and the magic of, discovery and, redemption for both characters. So I think that will be a fun one to write. I've got a a songwriter over in the Shoals named Gary Baker who's writing the songs for it. Gary is a Grammy Award-winning songwriter. He wrote the song I Swear, and many others, but that's probably the one he's known for most. And he's actually a fan of mine, which is kind of almost ridiculous because he's such a big deal. But we've become friends, and I think it's going to be a really neat collaboration with his songs and my stories. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds fantastic. I have to ask now, have you ever read or seen or both Bubba Hotep?
No, I haven't. I have not. I know what you're talking about, though, but I
Yes.
haven't.
Oh, well, you need to, because in that one, it is the way Elvis is involved is that he's alive, and the Elvis who died had been an impersonator that he hired so he could do something, but he fell off a stage, broke his hip, and had been in an old people's home, and so no one believes that he's really Elvis. And then there is a mummy. It's a Joe R. Lansdale story.
Oh, I got to check that out then.
Yeah. The book is great too, but the movie is Bruce Campbell, and oh my gosh, so worth seeing if you're into alternate reality Elvis things.
Okay, I need to check that out for sure.
Yeah, the king is battling it out with a mummy, and he's like 80. So anyway, it was fantastic. So
that's awesome. Thank you for telling me about that. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think you'll get a kick out of it. It's not serious like your book, but I think it'll be fun for you.
Right, for sure.
Well, before we go, where can people, when they're really excited, when they read the book, do they reach out to you on social media, through your website? I think you're doing a book tour too. Should people?
Yep. So I'm in the middle of my book tour right now. My website's robertbaileybooks.com. You can see me on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook's Robert Bailey Books. Instagram, I think, is R Bailey 32. But if you just search Robert Bailey and The Mediator, it'll pop up. And then my book tour is pretty extensive. We have a card on there. Like I said, we're going to Atlanta today. Tomorrow, I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, where this book is set. Tomorrow, we'll have our official book launch at the Snail on the Wall bookstore in Huntsville. And then I'm going to Fairhope on Wednesday, be at the Page and Palette bookstore, and Thursday in Sheffield, Alabama, where Gary's from. And that'll be where he lives now. And we'll have a big event there. And then on Saturday, I'm going north for the first time ever with my career. I'm doing events in Baltimore and in Sykesville, Maryland, and New Jersey, wow, Long Island, New York City, Connecticut, and Boston. So that's going to be a sight. First time I've ever ridden a train before in my life. So I'll probably write a book about the whole experience.
There you go. Right? That's the best part of being an author, is everything becomes, book
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I will let you continue on your book tour. Thank you so much for being here. And everyone who's listening, go check out The Mediator. It sounds like a fantastic book, and it's book one of a brand new series. And thanks for being here, Robert.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.